Right before the lights came on and the crowd exploded in screams, his body trembled. His hands were sweaty, his heart beat like a drum, and he knew if it went wrong, there was no turning back. This was the most real moment of his life, but he stepped in and changed everything. The king felt butterflies in his stomach. In this video, I'm going to tell you how that feeling inside Elvis became the fuel for the most electrifying performances ever known. Come with me and I'll show you how it happened. Elvis Presley was born on January 8, 1935, in Tupelo, Mississippi, a small town where life was simple and opportunities seemed limited. From an early age, Elvis carried a deep mix of shyness and sensitivity. He was an introspective boy, observant, but with a different sparkle in his eyes when it came to music. His mother, Gladys, was his greatest supporter, and the faith they shared was the heart of their home. The radio, the church choir, and the sounds of the American South shaped his soul. Little Elvis grew up absorbing every beat of gospel, blues, and country, styles that would later become the foundation of something the world had never seen before: rock and roll. Behind the image of the future icon, there was a boy who trembled at the thought of performing in public. In 1945, at just 10 years old, Elvis participated in a local contest at the Mississippi-Alabama Fair. He climbed on stage to sing Old Shep, a sad song about the loss of a loyal dog. He wore simple clothes, the microphone looked enormous, and the audience seemed endless. Even as a child, Elvis felt what he would later call stage fright. His heart raced, his hands sweated, his mind divided between the desire to sing and the fear of failing. He finished fifth, but that moment left a deep mark. It was the first time he faced the crowd, and at the same time, his own fear.
That experience taught him something that would change the course of his life. Fear didn't have to be an enemy. He realized that, even while trembling, he could still sing. The nervousness didn't stop him from expressing himself, it simply accompanied him. And that feeling would become a constant presence throughout his journey. Elvis would return to the stage many times during his teenage years, always with the same anxiety before performing, but also with the same irresistible urge to get up there and sing. Music became the space where he could free himself from insecurity. During his youth, Elvis was known for being reserved. He avoided drawing attention, embarrassed by his long hair and different style of clothing. Some classmates saw him as strange, others as a quiet and polite boy. But when he picked up the guitar, everything changed. He transformed. The voice that came from that shy boy had a power no one expected. Music served as both a shield and a liberation. On stage, he could be his true self, and that made every moment of nervousness worth it. Deep down, Elvis's fear was the same one that haunts many artists: the fear of not being accepted, of being judged, of not meeting expectations. But instead of running from it, he faced it. That silent courage followed him to the biggest stages of his life. Every time he got up to sing at local events, small radio shows, or contests, his body reacted with the same flutter in his stomach. And each time he stepped down, he realized he had conquered something within himself.
The boy from Tupelo began to stand out because of his unique voice and the emotional way he sang. There was truth in what he did. The shyness offstage contrasted with the intensity he displayed while performing. It was as if two versions of Elvis coexisted, the quiet boy and the fiery artist. That duality made him different. The audience couldn't explain it, but they felt it. Fear and talent seemed to walk side by side, feeding each other. When Elvis moved with his family to Memphis, he was still the same introspective young man, but now determined to follow music. He recorded his first songs at Sun Records, and even there, inside the studio, the nervousness appeared. The producers noticed that he trembled during the first notes, but soon his voice became steady. That pattern, initial fear followed by total surrender, would repeat throughout his life. It's important to understand that Elvis's fear was never a sign of weakness. It was an expression of the responsibility he felt toward his audience and his art. He knew that by singing, he was opening his heart, and anyone who exposes themselves that way inevitably feels vulnerable. But instead of paralyzing him, that vulnerability gave authenticity to his performance. The audience could sense, even without fully understanding, that there was something real in that boy.
The first step of the shy boy from Tupelo, singing Old Shep on an improvised stage, was the beginning of a long internal battle between insecurity and the desire to express himself. That struggle never disappeared, but what made it special was the way Elvis turned it into fuel. Every time he got on stage, even sweating and trembling, he let fear become energy. And perhaps that's exactly what made his performances so intense and unforgettable. Behind every movement, every note, there was a man who felt fear and yet had enough courage to sing before the world. And what about you? Do you believe fear can be turned into strength, just like Elvis did? Leave your opinion in the comments. I want to know how you face your own challenges. In the following years, Elvis Presley began to walk the path that would lead him to the top of the world. But the fear of the stage remained, hidden behind the spotlights and the screams of the crowds. He was no longer the shy boy from Tupelo, but the young man who set audiences on fire with a simple move of his hips. Still, his heart raced every time he stepped on stage. This contradiction followed him throughout his career. The man who seemed to dominate the audience, but who, inside, fought a silent battle against anxiety. In 1954, when Elvis performed for the first time at the Overton Park Shell in Memphis, something legendary happened. Nervous, he began to sing, and his body started trembling involuntarily. His legs shook, and the audience interpreted it as part of the performance. The people went wild, screaming, clapping, begging for more. What to him was a sign of insecurity became, by chance, his trademark. That trembling, born from fear, gave rise to a new way of performing. The crowd saw energy, boldness, and confidence, but Elvis knew that it was his own nervousness showing through. It was the first time fear became art. As the years went by, fame grew and the stages became bigger, but the feeling remained the same. Before every show, Elvis would withdraw for a few minutes in silence. It was his ritual. He took deep breaths, said a short prayer, and reminded himself that the audience deserved the best of him. Even with all the lights, cameras, and applause, there was still that same knot in his stomach, the same one he had felt back in Tupelo. He confessed to those close to him that he never got used to the stage. He said that every audience was new, and that every performance made him just as nervous as the first. That vulnerability didn't weaken him, it humanized him. Fear was part of Elvis's essence, and perhaps it was what kept him so intense, so real. He never pretended to be invincible. On the contrary, he used that emotional tension as fuel. When the curtains opened, all the insecurity turned into electricity. The body that once trembled with fear began to move with rhythm and passion. The voice that seemed hesitant backstage gained power and emotion through the microphone. Fear, in some strange way, made him give everything he had. Backstage, many witnessed this transformation. A quiet, nervous Elvis, fidgeting with his hands and staring at the floor, suddenly became the most charismatic man on earth when he stepped onto the stage. It was as if he crossed an invisible line, leaving all doubts behind. That metamorphosis amazed musicians, producers, and fans alike. Elvis had the gift of turning panic into presence, fear into magnetism. Have you ever felt that too? That moment when fear turns into courage? Tell me in the comments. I want to know if that same strength has ever shown up in your life. Even when his career reached its peak in the 1960s, with arenas and casinos packed full of fans, he never stopped feeling the same unease. He used to say that fear was a reminder that every show mattered, that nothing was guaranteed. And in a world where many artists became mechanical with success, Elvis kept the flame alive precisely because he still felt that tension before singing. He approached the stage with respect. Every performance was an intimate conversation with the audience, a silent request for connection. It was as if he were saying, "I feel fear too, but I'm here with you anyway." Elvis's anxiety wasn't limited to the stage. It was part of how he lived. He was extremely perfectionist and pushed himself harder than anyone else. He reviewed details of his outfits, rehearsed entrances and exits, worried about lighting and sound. Everything had to be flawless. But behind that quest for perfection was his desire to protect himself from judgment, to avoid failure. Fear and perfectionism walked hand in hand. One fed the other. The audience never saw this fragility. To those watching, Elvis was pure confidence. But the truth is, he relied on small habits to control the tension. He paced backstage, shook his hands, hummed quietly to himself. When he heard the announcement that the show was about to begin, his nervousness would spike. And it was exactly at that moment he would remember his philosophy. This is a new audience. I have to make them believe it's the first time. That mindset kept him present in the here and now, as if every performance were unique, and it really was. Elvis turned fear into ritual. The stage was not a place of comfort, it was an emotional battlefield. And with each victory, he gained more than applause. He conquered himself. His courage was not in feeling no fear, but in stepping up despite it. And that is perhaps the greatest lesson of his entire journey. A true artist doesn't eliminate fear, he masters it. Elvis Presley proved that night after night, show after show. The king of rock wasn't a man without fear. He was the man who turned fear into his crown. The end of the 1960s marked a new chapter in Elvis Presley's life, perhaps the most symbolic of all. After years away from the stage, immersed in film productions, and weighed down by his own fame, the king had to face his greatest adversary once again, fear. But this time, the stage was no longer the same. The world had changed, music had changed, and Elvis, now more mature, had to prove that he was still the same man who once conquered millions. That return to the stage was more than a comeback. It was a personal battle against the insecurities that had followed him since Tupelo. The year was 1968. Elvis was about to record the now famous television special known as the Comeback Special. Backstage, the atmosphere was tense. He hadn't performed on a real stage in almost a decade. The cameras, the lights, the crew, everything reignited that familiar nervous energy he knew so well. Friends remembered how, moments before recording, Elvis paced back and forth, restless, trying to mask his anxiety. Fame and experience hadn't shielded him from fear. On the contrary, time away from the stage had made him even more vulnerable. But there was something different now. He knew how to deal with that fear. Over the years, he had learned how to turn nervousness into energy. When the lights came on and the audience began to applaud, Elvis let the fear melt into the music. The man who had walked into the studio full of doubts transformed in front of the cameras. Dressed in black leather, sweating under the spotlights, he looked more alive than ever. What the public saw that night wasn't just a performance, it was liberation. Every note carried the strength of someone fighting to reclaim his voice. The special was a massive success, and more importantly, it marked Elvis's return to what had always guided him, his genuine passion for music and connection with the audience. That comeback didn't cure the fear, but it redefined it. Elvis realized that fear was part of the creative process. He didn't need to eliminate it, only to tame it. From then on, he accepted nervousness as a sign that he still cared, that he was still artistically alive. This understanding followed him in the years to come, especially when he began his Las Vegas shows in 1969. Under the bright casino lights and the demanding eyes of diverse audiences, that old feeling returned. Before every show, he would take a deep breath, look in the mirror, and prepare himself mentally. And, as always, once the microphone was turned on, fear became presence.
The Vegas performances became legendary. Elvis reinvented himself on stage, blending charisma, elegance, and emotion. But backstage, there was still that characteristic silence before the curtain rose. He often isolated himself, asking for a few minutes of peace. In those moments, he prayed, gave thanks, and remembered the boy who once trembled in Tupelo. The fear was still there, but now he recognized it as part of himself, almost like an old friend accompanying him through every new chapter. It was the same fear that kept him from relaxing, from becoming complacent, and pushed him to give his all in every song.
What's most impressive is that this nervousness never stopped him from growing. On the contrary, it made him more human, more connected to the public. He wasn't an untouchable god. He was a man who felt, who made mistakes, who trembled, and still went on stage. And that's exactly what made him magnetic. Elvis represented something everyone could relate to: the courage to face your fears, even when they feel bigger than you. His presence on stage was living proof that fear doesn't have to be the end of anything. It can be the beginning of something great. In the final years of his career, fear was no longer an enemy, but a natural part of the routine. He accepted the tension before shows with serenity. He still got anxious, still felt his hands sweat, but he knew that this feeling was what kept him connected to his art. Fear reminded Elvis that the stage wasn't just a job, it was the place where he felt alive. Every show was an emotional challenge, and every song was a complete surrender. He didn't sing just for the audience, he sang for himself, to prove once again that he still had something to say. The legacy of that phase runs deep. Elvis didn't just conquer the stage, he showed the world that true mastery comes from within. He didn't defeat fear by running from it, but by living with it day after day. He turned weakness into strength, anxiety into art. And that's why even today, when we watch his performances, we can still feel something different. A blend of vulnerability and power, fear and courage, humanity and brilliance. Elvis Presley didn't just overcome stage fright, he eternalized it, proving that greatness doesn't mean never feeling fear, but standing on stage even when your heart insists on trembling.
And so ends another chapter in the incredible journey of the king. Elvis Presley showed us that courage isn't the absence of fear, it's stepping onto the stage even when your heart is racing. If this story touched you in any way, if you also feel that Elvis still lives on in every note, every glance, and every memory, then this is your place. Take a moment now to subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next videos, and leave your like. It really helps keep the flame of our community of fans alive. Write in the comments which moment of Elvis's journey inspires you the most, and share this video with other admirers who, like you, know that Elvis wasn't just a singer, he was a force of nature. Let's keep the legacy alive together, because as long as there's someone listening and feeling his music, Elvis will never leave the stage.